So that's a bit bright up there. I'm going to put it down somewhere. There. Hopefully that doesn't look too crazy. I'm going to talk about something that I don't normally talk about, which is motorcycles. And me and my brother both ride motorcycles, and he's got, you know, a bit more free cash than me to perhaps deal with these things sometimes. And you look at the kind of bikes he buys, and they're great bikes. I mean, big BMW Boxer twins that are relatively modern, and so they've got a lot of torque and everything, you know, 1200cc or whatever. And you've got more the budget bike like I ride, which is a 4-cylinder. It's what they call a UJM, a Universal Japanese Multi. It's sat out there, so it's like 4 cylinders, it's carburetors, there's nothing trick about it. Having said that, it doesn't have anti-lock brakes, which according to my brother on his little BMW 800, at one roundabout he had to slam on the brakes, and something to do with anti-catapult or anti-rollover or something, the brakes decide the bike might tip over. Now, that's quite a fine balanced decision. I'm not sure a machine can make that decision given the road conditions and everything else. But anyway, the machine made that decision and let the brakes go. If you're on a motorcycle and you are thundering towards a roundabout at 40 miles an hour, or even at 30 miles an hour, and I mean, it could be perfectly legal to do 40 on a dual carriageway. You come up, we've got loads of them in the UK. And then you see a car suddenly come in, and maybe you shouldn't have. Maybe you'd looked at the roundabout ahead and you saw that the chances of this guy coming in were very slim, because you wouldn't have. But maybe they don't think like that. So some guy was kind of thought, oh, I better put on it. So he rammed the brakes on. Not that hard, he thought, but the brakes decided to let go because it thought it was going to tip. So its anti-tip mechanism said, oh no, these anti-lock brakes must let go so that you don't roll over. Well, what does that matter if you get flattened by a truck? So it kind of forced him to just roll onto the roundabout. He had to somehow avoid the vehicle that was coming around, which he did, but that's a very dangerous thing. The vehicle has made a decision that you will not have your brakes applied. That's up to you. It might even be preferable for you to flip over or slip onto your side or something than to have the brakes either have the anti-lock cut in or to let go of the brakes. So some of the technology is quite interesting. That same bike, which is a blooming good bike, I've ridden it and it's great, you know, on a private road obviously, at 80 to 100 miles an hour. I was overtaking something and on this private airfield, and it was like there was still loads of throttle left. On my diversion 600, you're there. You've got a 1/4 inch left on the throttle, nothing much really. But that fuel-injected twin-cylinder 800 that BMW make, it's an ST or something they call it. That's a nice piece of kit. You've got, I had about 1/3 of the throttle or half the throttle left. I was doing 75, 80. There's no way that I felt I wouldn't run out of throttle on that bike. In other words, if you had to overtake at speed and things got out of hand and you ended up doing a lot more speed than you thought, you would have the speed if you needed it. Or you could just slow down. So you have the choice. I don't have the choice. I would end up slowing down. But although I don't necessarily want to spend or have the money to spend on motorcycles, there isn't much to entice me out there, because there's the thing about bikes is that's interesting to me is, yes, you've got electric motorcycles, but hybrids are virtually non-existent. And you've got this space at the front of a motorcycle. There's lots of bicycles and motorcycles that have got hub motors, and these go on the hub round the axle. And on a motorcycle with twin disc brakes, you've got this space at the front, which strikes me as being horribly wasted when we've got electric hub motors you could slap in that space. And you're without trying, your 800cc or 1000cc bike would suddenly go from 48 miles to the gallon or 60 miles to the gallon, as the 800s or 750s might do. You'd start getting bikes typically doing 90 to the gallon and stuff. And my 600 would go over 100 to the gallon, because mine does 75 as it is. If you've got straight flat roads like you have in the north of England, where the borders are of Scotland, like near Hadrian's Wall and stuff, they're wide and very flat. Round Gretna, the border between Scotland and England, you've got this big wide flat roads, Roman roads that we built on top of. And you can just roll along at 60, and my bike, which is designed in the late 1980s, early 1990s, it gives 75 to the gallon. And that's loaded up with me, who's not light, and a load of stuff on it. Camping stuff. And the only aerodynamic help I've got is a little nose fairing, that's it. So I found that it was, I'm still waiting for the technology that would make me even want to change the bike. Power alone wouldn't do it, but you know, the fact that when you're going downhill and when you're braking, you're getting some energy back, that would do it. You just need a couple of cables down to hub motor at the front, which generates, and you need somewhere to stuff a battery. You might have to make the bikes bigger so you can put a battery in somewhere. But then you'd save on fuel tank space because you don't need such a big fuel tank. Who knows? But it can be done. It can always be done if you've got the will. So the point is, motorcycle technology has really been left behind. Either you've got an electric bike, or you've got an internal combustion engine on a bike. But that gap between those two rotors, as the Americans call them, the two disc brakes at the front, it's just crying out for a hub motor to be fitted. And the fact that bikes are lagging so much seems odd to me. But of course they're already hugely expensive. You know, these big Beamers are like 12 grand. So if you wanted to put a hub motor in, maybe it'd be even more. But then you would have the advantage of getting, you know, 30 to 50% more fuel economy. So there's absolutely no incentive for me to let go of my 4-cylinder carburetted. I mean, that's one thing about it. Internal combustion engines are only, they make really good heaters. They really do. They make great heaters because 85% efficiency as heating is what they do. The energy you get out of the shaft is almost a byproduct because they're so bad. Whereas electric motors only give about 10% or 7 or 8% as heat. So you get very little heat out. In other words, very little wastage. The internal combustion engine is a much better heater than it is a motor. And that's its basic problem. And the problem is, every time you get more power out of it, you get more heat out of it. So let's say you got your motor, let's say you found a way to get 50% more power out of an internal combustion engine, a petrol engine. Loads of bikers might say, great, but what you'll actually get is about 40% of that will be heat, and you maybe get 10% to 20% will be actual turning energy on a shaft. Ridiculous. In other words, you'll need a much bigger radiator. And that's one thing you find, my bike doesn't have a radiator. It's not water cooled because it doesn't need it, because it's not highly tuned. As soon as you try to get up, my bike produces about 50-60 brake horsepower. When you get 70 or 80 brake horsepower out of a 600cc motorcycle, you then need water cooling. You're lugging around the weight, you're letting go of the heat energy. It may even give you, it won't give you better fuel economy, but it might give you reasonable fuel economy. So what? In efficiency terms, it's rubbish. So I'm still waiting for them to put a hub motor in the front of bikes. And that would be the only time when I could honestly say that motorcycle technology has overhauled my 26-year-old design of Japanese bike. And the Yamaha diversion I've got, you know, up between 63 and 75 miles per gallon, and that's not paying any attention at all, not trying to be economical. And it's an ancient design, and that keeps up with, absolutely keeps up with any other 600 to 800cc motorcycle. And its performance isn't there, but then I'm not producing all that heat, and I don't need water cooling. Which, I'll be honest with you, there's no water-cooled engine that after 10 years you don't find rust starting to appear or some rot is set in. So I'm glad I don't have that. It's got a little bit of oil cooling, that's all it's got. And even that's more than it needs. So, you know, bike manufacturers got to get their finger out, really. The car manufacturers run the way. They're really shooting off now, and now that Dieselgate's happened, thank God in a way, it's spurred the Germans on to follow the Japanese lead of going for petrol electric instead of diesel. And diesel, if you didn't know it, is pretty much dead. If like me, you've got an old diesel car, that's fine, you can hang on to that. But I see a lot of people buying them. They must be getting a good deal and several £1,000s knocked off the lovely Audi that's got diesel in it, because that car is going to depreciate like hell once they ban it from cities like Munich and Berlin and stuff, which will probably happen in the next 5 years. Thanks for watching and listening.